On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers came back to win in Detroit. We'll talk about that and more on this one. Reminder, thanks again for making us your first listen every single day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That includes YouTube, where we'd love you to go subscribe to our channel. And that includes places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you can do the show a solid and leave us a review. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive an instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, and that promo code is LOCKED ON.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and NBA at large for places like Down UPROXX and SB Nation Through the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell. He's the proprietor of Down Euclid. He is at Through the Sword as well. Today's show, Segment 1, Cavs Pistons Big Takeaway, where the Cavs came back to win. Segment 2, some awards from that game. In Segment 3, we'll give you some belabored takes on Cavs Bucks, and specifically, I think, touch on the Jarrett Allen injury and where it kind of stands with him. But Evan, let's start with Cavs Pistons. Kind of an ugly game. I think one of the more kind of performances from the Cavs in a lot of ways. But look, sometimes, in my mind, and I think it is just factual that happens. This is an 82-game season where things get ugly, your energy can wane, you're down a bunch of rotation players. Another one in J.D. Osman gets whacked in the face, and I think the PTSD was probably real for that, because I don't think they could handle another player like having a weird face injury. But the Cavs come back. They beat a Detroit team after they lose to the Bucks to start off this little 3-game road trip, and I think you're just happy to come away with this win if you're Cleveland. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't like a perfect performance, but it's a win nonetheless.
Yeah, like Seabiscuit, Kim Kardashian. This was a good comeback for the Cavs at the end of the day, and yeah, like you said, it was just like an ugly one overall. I think I talked about this in the Locked On Now if you're checking out from that, but the Cavs looked lethargic and they kind of got sucker punched by the Bucks and kind of got mollywopped by Milwaukee in general on Friday. But we'll talk about that more in the final segment of the show. But you could see a little bit of the carryover from that. I think not having Jarrett Allen was kind of an X factor for Cleveland in this one, because he's just so important to what the Cavs do defensively. And I think as a defensive first team, that kind of disrupts your flow quite a bit if you're Cleveland. But it also doesn't help that like Evan Mobley is kind of cooking for the better part of the first half, but you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland kind of throwing up some shots to no avail. Sure, Garland and Mitchell combined finished the night 23 of 25 from the free throw line, and Mitchell scored 14 of his 32 points in the fourth quarter. Like, yeah, they're both sensational, but the Cavs just looked a little bit off from the tip, and they were just kind of just off kilter all throughout this game and just kind of going back and forth on this one with the Pistons. And this is just a Pistons team that's not very good. Let's just be frank. Like, Marvin Bagley was leading this team in scoring, and a big what if for the Pistons there with the Kings rather, if who they took. But it's just a weird amalgamation that the Pistons kind of have, and just like lackluster talent with no Cade Cunningham, no Bogdanovich in this one. The Pistons will likely need another just soft reset in terms of getting like a top talent player, of course. I think Jaden Ivey certainly helps with this too, but it's tough to really forecast with the Pistons are at just because they're not that good. But the Cavs kind of played down to their opponent and then were playing from behind most of the game and kind of found a way to break through in the third quarter heading into the fourth, and then just kind of kept the Pistons at arm's length away for the remainder of it. But this was tough for the first three, and then the Cavs kind of looked like the Cavs a bit in the fourth.
When you don't have like Kevin Love and Lamar Stevens,
Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, those are four rotation guys.
Yeah, three like guys that if you at the beginning of the year you're like, okay, like we're gonna put down this guy in ink as far as like them being part of the Cavs rotation, and like then you get into like, okay, you also don't have Ricky Rubio, you also don't have Dylan Windler, because Dylan Windler is just like and apparently just like doomed to be in injury purgatory hell. Like this is kind of like turned into a thin roster, right? This is taken into a situation where like they're just like playing like 7, 8, 9 guys on it. Like Robin Lopez started this game, he plays 4 minutes. And like the reality of this Cavs situation, I think, Evan, is that like they're just sometimes you're just like they're kind of just surviving right now. Like right now with where they're at, I feel like they are just surviving, just kind of navigating some of this right now. Like and like some of that is the injury stuff, but then it's like, okay, like Mitchell and Garland hit a bunch of free throws. They didn't like shoot well until like late in this game. And it was really Mitchell who puts the dagger down between the two of them. And it's like you're kind of just look, sometimes you're just going to have games like this. You're going to have clunkers against a bad team. You're going to play them like relatively, even. Maybe, they go down by 12 at one point, and then you put together like a really good fourth quarter, and that's just like enough. And like, this is not a game that if when I go back, I think at the end of the year, and I'm saying, okay, like if I'm going to give someone 10 Cavs performances to give them like an idea of what this team could be in the playoffs, this is like not on that list. Right? Like, this is just a game where you're just like, you got to win. You have to play in Toronto tomorrow. I would have kind of low expectations for the energy level for that one for a lot of reasons. And you move on and you try to just keep putting your other foot forward.
Yeah, you kind of see maybe where you're at. It is worth noting that Jared Allen and Karis LeVert did travel with the team for this game. So, well, they were with the team as well for Milwaukee, obviously, as well. For this trip the Cavs are kind of on. And it's worth noting at least that, like, hey, if these two are there, there's a chance that they could play. And maybe they do play against Toronto. There's not going to really be an injury report update until tomorrow around lunchtime. Monday around lunchtime, because this is Monday's episode. So we'll see who is and isn't available for Cleveland in that game. But at this point, like you said, you kind of have to scrap through this one and just kind of maybe find a way to dig deep and just battle through some circumstances that are out of your control. And maybe you get another win against the Raptors, you not another win, but you avenge an opening night loss to the Raptors and try and maybe build some more positive momentum, at least as you head back home on Wednesday.
Evan, just because I feel like the Cavs Twitter sickos out there, like maybe just want a little bit of this, and we have other things we'll discuss on in segment 2 related to Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell and stuff. What'd you think of Mamadi Diakite?
I think he played well. I think he played with a lot of energy. I mean, let's just pull up his stats. I have it in front of me here. He finished the night with 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 fouls, 2 turnovers, 2 blocks, and a plus-minus of 5. Like, he was a 1 from 3, so he's a funky player. I think he has, like, that tweener size of a 3-4. He kind of fits that mold of, like, a Lamar Stevens, Dean Wade type. We're like, okay, you're a 4, but we're going to kind of mold you to be more of a 3 within our system and just how we function. And if he is your high-energy break glass in case of emergency big man, like he's your 14th or 15th guy on your roster, I think that's a good spot. But, hey, I guess when you're banged up and dealing with so many injuries, like you need to get minutes to guys that are on two-way deals like Diakite and Isaiah Mobley, who got 3 seconds of this game. But I don't know. I thought he played well. I don't think he's going to be like, deserves like starter minutes or like a serious spot in this rotation, but he played well. What did you think?
I thought he was fine. Like, I think he plays with energy. He is active. Like, he has a little bit of like the Dean Wade, like kind of just is going to force things to happen when he's on the floor. Very, like, again, like I think his activity is probably his best thing. He hit the 2 nice block shots, which I think were kind of key moments in what he said. But like, it's very much just like, okay, like good for him and plugging a hole amid this weird roster stuff. Like clearly, like he was a better option in this game than what Robin Lopez it was. Like I don't, and like it's nice that they actually have a 2-way that they can turn to for depth if they need it. And I think this is they needed it, so that's like the extent of the hype. I don't think this is like anything more than that. But I thought he was fun and it's good. And like, look, good on him for stepping up and doing it. He hasn't been playing regularly since he signed that 2-way, and it really that's a tricky spot to be in as a player. And I so give him credit for showing up and doing the thing. Okay, after the break, we're gonna come back. We are going to give out our game awards. If you're listening for the first time, that is game MVP, our stat of the night, and our play of the night. But Evan, you first have an ad read for us.
You're absolutely correct. Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want wherever you want it from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just for any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and it's also coming soon to Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, holiday, or just a normal day at the Locked On Cavs HQ. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and host the chase down and need to get from point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see if it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver that car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive today at Turo.com. Thanks to Turo for sponsoring the show.
Skirt. All right, we're back here on Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris Manning. That man is Evan Dammarell. Evan, yeah, quick check for you. How you feeling about your Denver Broncos right now, my guy?
Russell Wilson has a lot of years left on his contract, and Nathaniel Hackett really is showing the fact that he was the architect of the E.J. Manuel Buffalo Bills offense, or the Blake Bortles Jacksonville Jaguars offense, where they won in spite of how bad the Jaguars were on offense.
Are you saying he's not quite hacking it?
No, I think, getting Joe Rogan, regular Aaron Rodgers was plan A for the Broncos, and then they got a pretty cooked Russell Wilson, and that's plan B, so whatever. This is a team that has never had a history of successfully drafting a quarterback, including John Elway, who they traded for, and it's just going to be the same stuff, different day, and you just need to kind of maybe do a clean reset with the coaching staff and figure something else out.
Brutal. All right, let's give it our game awards and talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. MVP.
Yeah,
I go Evan Mobley for this. And, look, we didn't touch on him in segment one, really. I feel like we kind of buried the lead. 8-12 for him. Played 39 minutes, just a shade under 40. 13 rebounds, 7 defensive, 6 on the offensive glass. Had an assist. Hit 2 3-pointers, 20 points. I thought just really, ate up Marvin Bagley in the post for much of this game. Had some really nice rotation to alter shots and be there. Incredibly efficient on offense. Look, this guy, he just played a really good game, and I think until Mitchell showed up late was kind of the catalyst for a lot of what worked for the Cavs in this game. So Evan Mobley just doing stuff and having a really, really big performance, and the Cavs absolutely needed it too.
And it's certainly unique because I think you saw a little bit of column A, column B in what Evan Mobley does. He's my MVP as well, folks, but like Chris said, he was handling Marvin Bagley really well down low. He was kind of being forced to play the 5 and cover for a lot of almost all of Cleveland's defensive issues just on that side of the ball, and he did a very good job of it. And sure, you don't really see the immediate impact if you're just glancing at the box score, but if you're watching the game, you can tell Mobley has an impact on almost every possession for the Cavs on either end of the floor, and I think that's kind of the catalyst of what they need to do when they want to win ugly like this, or they're missing a guy like Jared Allen who's having a bit of an oft-injured season to start the year so far, and you just kind of have to piece things together and maybe lean on a guy who is starting to level up and fill into that mold that we kind of expected him to already be filled into when the season started, and now it's just kind of enticing to think hey, where could he go from here? He is just so multifaceted and fascinating as a player. And like you said, we kind of buried the lead, but I think that's just going without saying. Evan Mobley's just really freaking good. And yeah, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland got theirs in the fourth quarter and at the free throw line. But without Evan Mobley there, I don't think the Cavs are winning this game, or at all.
No, this game is not it's hard enough to survive Mitchell and Garland kind of playing the way they did for much of this game. You needed Evan Mobley to kind of make that. You didn't have Jetty Osman didn't really give you some of your offensive oomph you look for. Kevin Love isn't there to do that. Mobley kind of had to do that, and he did. Okay, let's go to play of the night. Evan, mine is Donovan Mitchell. Okay, 2:09 left in the fourth quarter. He hits a 3. Cavs go up 4. This is a top 3 reason why it's nice to have someone like Donovan Mitchell on your basketball team. This dude will. He just the fact that he had a bad night does not matter. He's just okay, I gotta take a big shot. Great, goes and does it. Absolutely sticks it. Cavs go up 4. He had another in the quarter that also was big. That was my original pick, but then this one was just bigger in terms of what it meant in the flow of the game. The guy is just unafraid to do stuff, and you like as much as Mobley was, I think the opening tip to final buzzer best player, he was kind of the closer for the Cavs, and he was just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this Donovan Mitchell put on full display. Like I said in the first segment, 14 points in the fourth quarter is pretty crazy. But the fact that he was just big shots and kind of fearless in those moments. Like if you look at the Cavs last season without Donovan Mitchell, they are, even with Colin Sexton on the floor, like you weren't getting that at the end of the day. And like Donovan Mitchell just is a little bit fearless. I think him kind of playing off the ebb and flow of how the Cavs function on offense and just, how the Pistons are probably maybe overcommitting to Darius Garland in certain possessions, or how they overcommit to like Evan Mobley down low, or even if he's floating on the 3-point line, because Mobley hit 2 3-pointers tonight. That's pretty big. But it's interesting to watch just how this Cavs team is kind of evolving a little bit, and when they do kind of fall apart due to youth and inexperience, or just kind of injuries just kind of being against them like they are right now. Like having a guy who is a consistent offensive threat in Donovan Mitchell, who, like, and it's not Dion Waiters like, or even RJ Barrett if you want to go like current terms, but like, yeah, he could not miss, or he could miss a lot of shots, but he'll start making the ones that matter, just like the most opportune moments, and he has like an uncanny ability to just do that on a nightly basis.
Yeah, he's
the real deal.
He's just worth it. IMO, worth it. Okay, stat of the night. Evan, here's mine. This is a weird one. 5th time this season, the Cavs have shot 30% or lower from 3. Okay, I don't know if did you look at what their record was in these games. I put this in the outline, but did you look at this yet?
No, I didn't know your statistic, but I did see the record, so I won't steal your thunder. It was surprising and makes me chuckle because one JB Bickerstaff says the NBA has fetishized the 3-pointer, and this is a feather in his cap once you share the record.
Yeah, 4-1 on the season. The Cavs are when they've shot 30% or fewer from 3, lower from 3. I will be asking about this the next time the Cavs play a home game, because like I'm just like, JB, are you aware of this? And B, like, what does this tell you about your team? I just find this weird. I don't know what it means. I have no idea. It is just
Chris,
like funny.
I can give you the answer real quick. He says, traditionally speaking and historically speaking, the game is won in the paint. And also, the NBA has kind of fetishized 3-point shooting because of analytics and computers or something of that ilk. And no disrespect to JB, he is. There's a reason why I'm podcasting, and he's a friend of the program. But reason why I'm podcasting and not coaching the NBA level. But the Cavs have a weird amalgamation of parts where they don't need to be overly reliant on the 3-pointer, but it's better that at least they're taking more. I'll just say that.
No, it's just like weird that the Knights said like they shot bad from 3. It's just like we still won, and the only loss among those 5 games was the Warriors game, which was like just a performance on the back end of that road trip.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to think about, and just to kind of go hand in hand with yours. My stat of the night was, of those 8 3-pointers Cleveland made overall, Evan Mobley made 2 of them. It's just kind of noteworthy because you're asking Mobley to expand his range, and when he finds that comfort and familiarity with it, I'm sure if you follow me on social, you'll see that more often than not I'm posting a video of Evan Mobley attempting 3-pointers and just in isolation or just within some type of motion on one-on-none with Luke Walton and some of the other assistants, and seeing that actually become like a self-actualization in his offensive repertoire is kind of cool, and you hope, hey, let him keep taking these and let him keep shooting these, because if Evan Mobley becomes a little bit more of a reliable 3-point shooter, let's say like he takes 2 to 3 a night this season, but it becomes part of his bag, it's going to make the offense a lot more lethal for Cleveland, because 1, it gives Jared Allen space to operate with, and 2, the Cavs can rack up points a heck of a lot easier because they're going to have so many guys just commanding defensive attention on the floor.
Look, I just think even if you just get him the ball in those spots, like I think he can dribble. He can.
Well, even when they utilized him as a trailer in the fourth quarter and he hit that 3-pointer, like that's really helpful. Like he's like inbounds the ball and he's coming in at the end of a fast break or just like, an opening opportunity, like kick it back out to him and he hits it. Like that's great. That's exactly what you need from him.
Yeah, and it's just like, look, if he gets the ball at the top of the key and they close and he can attack that, like it just opens up little things, and there's stuff going on. Okay. One more break. We'll come back and we're gonna give some takeaways from that Bucks game from the other day, and talk about Jared Allen, because his hip injury I think is probably the most pressing thing for the Cleveland Cavaliers at this moment in time. But first, gotta tell today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win if you guess right. You can win up to 10 times as much on your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball for men and women, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, and a whole lot more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They're safe and fast withdrawals. It is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, PrizePicks will give you 100. If you deposit 50, PrizePicks will give you 50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right. Last Locked On Cavs segment of the day. Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell here. So Jared Allen's injury, Evan, to me is just, look, the Bucks game, we'll talk about it and what it means, what it doesn't mean. I just look at Jared Allen having this injury and having this hip issue, and that is you just like need him healthy, and you need him to just like not get hurt and be around. So I'm curious to see like how long he'll be out with this, but you know, I don't blame people for wanting to like hold their breath. You know, when after he tumbles over Giannis and has this hip issue.
Sorry,
low back contusion or whatever it's being called.
It's a mix. It's an amalgamation of things. I mean, let's be frank. It was a hard fall against the Bucks on Friday, and no matter who you are, what size you are, it's going to hurt. But also the fact that Jared Allen is just so dramatically bigger, and the fact that like just blood flows and healing functions differently the bigger you are, just because there's more space for the body to have to recover. It's tricky. I think, like I said, like Jared Allen is surprisingly a little bit oft injured this season. I want to ask you in a second a question about that, but it sucks. Like at the end of the day, it sucks. I think like JB Bickerstaff like coaching up his players through the media by saying like, hey, he should be defensive player of the year, at least consideration for it, and like saying Mobley should be all defensive. Like that's, yeah, you can make arguments for both, but I really do think you can make a pretty strong argument for, at least in Allen's case, that like the defense just does not function as well without him out there, because he is just such a vacuum and a black hole at the rim where he's so good at defending the paint, and then that unlocks Evan Mobley to kind of be a tweener where he defends in space, he can defend in the paint. Like that does a lot for them. And like I think just the multifacetedness of this Cavs team on defense is stunted a little bit without Jared Allen out there. And my question for you is just like, yeah, there was a non-COVID sickness, but like Jared Allen's had quite a few injuries so far and just like freak stuff this season. Like, do you have any concerns quietly that like he could be an oft-injured guy, like, or like maybe he's a little bit more fragile than we initially thought, because he was Mr. Reliable in Brooklyn for the longest time, where like he consistently was available?
I don't, just because like I think this like this stuff just I think happens. Like even like I think about Kevin Love as like maybe the best example of this from a couple years ago. Do you remember? I think it might have been the last LeBron year, maybe the year after. He like
I was going to think about the year before last season where everyone thought he was cooked.
Well, he might have been. But do you remember when he like hurt his hand against the Pistons and it just like it was like a weird smack on the rim, or like just had like a weird like injury and he like ends up like fracturing like part of his hand?
Well, yeah, it was the same bone he broke doing knuckle push-ups as a Timberwolf.
Oh my God, the NBA.
Which is just weird. It's weird to find the common thread of some of these injuries for these guys, but I'm pretty sure Kevin Love, I know the player you're talking about, it was like a weird freak accident play against the Pistons, but it was similar. It was either the same bone or the bone in the similar spots when Love was doing knuckle push-ups during a pregame warm-up for when he was with the Timberwolves.
Yeah. Like, I just think like he's getting unlucky, and like that's just gonna happen with us. I'm not like a doctor, like we are not doctors, and like I don't know like all like this to figure it out, but it's just like I think this feels like just kind of unlucky things.
We don't give medical advice.
Yeah, we don't do that. But like I think it's just like unlucky, and it's like when you take a tumble like that, it's gonna hurt. Like in the NBA, you could just step on someone's ankle, and you could be out 2 weeks, right? Like that's just like it's just the nature of like there's just inherent like injury risk every time someone plays, and like yes, this is kind of bottling up for the Cavs, but it's just where it's at right now.
Yeah, basketball is a much more physical sport than I think people realize as well, and I also think if you're just looking through the lens of Cavs fans a little bit, when you look at guys like LeBron, who he would like roll his ankle on like the crazy, like it would look like it hurt so bad, and he would just tighten up his shoe, then run back down the floor. Like that's not normal and unprecedented in any case. And now if you look at LeBron, like a slight injury could shut him down for several weeks, or like he's had some issues with Los Angeles, and I think you're finally seeing him get long on the tooth in terms of his health sometimes. And like Chris said, and just to kind of go off what I was saying, like basketball is a very physical game, especially at a professional level. And if you're a guy like Jarrett Allen, who is the defensive anchor of this team, who is going to be facing a ton of contact at the rim, or is getting kind of continually whacked because like his offensive game is just in the inside, and like teams just know like, okay, either we foul him or we let him just kind of have to fight us for this layup or dunk attempt or just put back or anything in between. So he is probably just getting the brunt of the offensive and defensive pressure just in terms of just physicality. And it's understandable that maybe he's just facing a little bit of wear and tear. And this is where you kind of go back to the fact that, like, it's maybe a better thing the Cavs did invest a little bit more in a backup center spot with Robin Lopez. And it's a step up from Ed Davis. It's a step up from any of the guys the Cavs kind of threw out there at times to back up Allen over the last 2-ish years or so since he's joined Cleveland, and I mean Andre Drummond included, but you just look at it and you're like, he's just going to take hits. And I agree with you. I think maybe also just because they're playing the Pistons tonight, which just isn't a good team, and a Pistons team that's very banged up in terms of talent right now, you can probably afford to rest Jarrett Allen tonight and maybe give him. So they've last played Friday, so he has Friday and Sunday off, or Saturday and Sunday off, and he missed the majority of Friday's game as well. Maybe he plays Monday against the Raptors, or you just give him another night off because the Raptors are pretty banged up too, and then you shift focus to Wednesday when you are back home, and then maybe you can kind of jumpstart Jarrett Allen after you give him several days off to kind of rest and recover.
Yeah, like it's like so hard to stay healthy, and like, look, I understand people are probably like annoyed at like just having injuries on your favorite team or one of your favorite teams or whatever. Like a lot, like it just gets weird sometimes. Like it just happens. Like you will just have like he tumbles over Giannis and falls down. Like Darius Garland got poked in the eye on opening night and missed 8 games.
And he routinely gets whacked in the face and poked in the eye every night now. So it's part of the. It's just tough.
Remember how Manny Harris got hurt, like froze his foot or whatever, like way back?
Yeah, I got good to go. It's an interesting subchapter of that book where he fell asleep cryo chilling his feet, and he got freezer burn on the tops of his feet, and it didn't recover properly.
This is not Dylan Windler.
Oh, no. So I know we're going on the diatribe of injuries and like health and stuff. So that was just my questions. Like, do you have any quiet concerns? Like, hey, these are just all freak injuries, kind of similar to like a Kevin Love? Or do you, like early on with Kevin Love, before you're like, okay, maybe Kevin Love is more injury prone than realized, and maybe you just think like when you look at how Allen plays and how the Cavs utilize him, that he has a higher injury risk at the end of the day because of it?
No, I think it's I thought the question you might ask is like, who's having a better defensive season, Allen or Mobley? And I think the answer is probably Allen. But I did like a poll of this on Elon Musk's like weird website, and it was like overwhelmingly in favor of Allen. And I think it is Allen, but I don't think it's like an 80. It was like 84 to 16% split, and I don't think it's like that far apart.
It's tough because I think it's Allen just because, like I said, he's so integral to how the Cavs function defensively. But like, great googly moogly, Evan Mobley does some crazy stuff on a nightly basis for the Cavs too. Like, that's the fun thing too. I think is like you have two guys that are defensive player of the year type players, or all defensive type players. Like that's fascinating to say. Like they're also like pretty much playing in tandem with one another. Like that just makes the Cavs really hellacious on defense.
Yeah, like what Allen does is like this very useful and important like rim protector thing, and like a little bit of the switching out and doing stuff, whereas Evan Mobley is like just like an alien freak.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting.
And like he switches and he moves around and he's doing different stuff. Like their jobs are very different. Their jobs are just entirely different. And Mobley is not the rim protector Allen is at this point. Like he's not a rim deterrent in the way Allen can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to kind of shift focus a little bit, just because we are going to be pressed for time here, for the Bucks game, for me at least, I think the Allen injury kind of like unravel things a little bit for Cleveland, just kind of made them less functional against Milwaukee. But just watching the Cavs and the Bucks play this time around, it's still kind of clear to me that Cleveland probably is a player or two away and just, needs a little bit of that maturity leveling up as a team in order to kind of hang with a team like the Bucks. And like, it's still very clear to me Milwaukee is the top of the Eastern Conference. I think Boston separated themselves from Cleveland quite a bit at this point, just with how Jason Tatum's playing out of his gourd and how that team is playing in general. But like, Cleveland is in that fluidish mix right up behind those two at this point. But like, they're a piece or two away.
Here's the top 6 in the East. Celtics are 16-4. Notably, 2 of those losses did come against the Cavs. Facts. Bucks are 13-5. Don't have Chris Middleton yet. Cavs are 13-7. Pacers 11-8. Hawks 11-9. Sixers 11-9. Raptors are half a game back of 6 at 10-9. They've had some injuries as well. Obviously, the Sixers have Harden injury and then some Embiid injuries. Pacers, I would expect obviously to fall back. We'll see if like Miami or Brooklyn or someone does ascend in some way as well. But we're about a quarter of the way through the season. The Cavs have been like a top 3 team in the East in terms of record. Obviously 0-2 against Milwaukee, 0-2 against the Celtics. I think a lot of my ultimate judgment is like I want to see what this looks like in a playoff series, but. Look, this Cavs team I think is generally good, but I think you're right in saying okay, like do I think if chips down, are they kind of still a little bit further back? I think the answer is yes, but some of that is just like Giannis is so fully formed, and that was maybe the biggest difference in the second matchup. Like he was actually kind of bad by his standards in the first game. He was really, really good in that third quarter. Just Evan, interesting note here is in the Celeste thing. Here's the top 5 teams in terms of net rating right now. Celtics are plus 8.2 per 100. Phoenix is plus 6.6. The Cavs are plus 5.6. They are third. Bucks are plus 5.5. Pelicans are plus 5.5. So the 3 of the top 4 teams in the East are the top 3 teams in the East are 3 of the top 4 teams in terms of point differential right now, which is just kind of like a better indicator of like the win percentage of how good you are. And like the Cavs should feel, I think ultimately, even if we think the Cavs are maybe still like a tad behind these teams, I would feel pretty good about where they're at 21 games in, and this kind of feeling like a very imperfect 21 game sample.
Yeah, I mean, interested to see how it kind of evolves as things go on. I think the Cavs still are like a move or 2 away from like truly like hitting that next gear in the Eastern Conference. And I wonder what they're going to do this season in order to do it. But there is a lot of interesting stuff they can do internally, at least, to balance things out. And we'll just kind of we'll see how it goes from here. But like the Cavs are at a very good place a quarter of the way into the season, and they just have only room to grow from here.
Yes. All right. On that note, I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by the shiny hunter himself, Jacob Stevens. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. It was also a big Cleveland Browns Sunday, so check out Locked On Browns with G. Bush and Jeff Lloyd if you haven't done that as well. But again, subscribe. Please go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating interview. That is the best way to support us. Thanks again. We'll be back on Tuesday recapping Cavs Raptors round 2 back up north of the Cavs. They finish up the 3-game road trip. Peace out, Boy Scouts / Girl Scouts.